Hey y'all, Simple Frugal here. Let's clarify that. My wife is simply frugal. I'm just dirt cheap. This is a pile of wood. This pile of wood used to be about 4 feet tall. Now as you can see it's only about 4 layers. That's sawmill lumber that I buy. Usually Calls. And it's usually a mix of wood. Out of this so far I've gotten walnut, oak, mahogany, and a piece of cherry, and a couple of pieces of cedar. We've talked about mentioned the off-grid shop a couple of times in some of our videos. So we're going to take you out to the shop today. Up there you can see some solar panels above the doors there. That's 2 10s and 2 30s, so that's only 80 watts of solar. Off to the side there you see a smaller solar panel. That's actually an LED light that lights up at night. So we're going to take you in and show you what our off-grid shop looks like and how our off-grid shop works. We'll open up the doors here and get them blocked open. This is the shop. Right now I'm going to turn on this is our electric center here. I'm going to turn on these 2 switches right here. Those 2 switches are hooked to 12-volt battery and are hooked to 12-volt lights, and those are task lights by the machines. You can see there's one there by the bandsaw, one over there by the miter saw, one back by the dado table saw, one back by the drill press. We had one on the table saw too, but it's going bad on us. As you can see, it's just flickering up there. It's not shining very well. We'll go back up here now and we'll show you how we turn the shop on. It's really a very simple process. First of all, we'll show you that right there. That's our charge controller. I don't know if it'll focus well enough, but we're getting less than 2 watts in, less than 2/10 of a watt in right now. And getting 18 volts. Now we're down to 14.4 volts. Of course, we haven't had no sun. It's been raining for about 3 days here, so we're down to about 12.4 volts on our inverter. As you can see, we have a Power Drive 3000 inverter. Down here we have 2 deep cycle marine batteries. These are lead acid. Not really fancy. And as we go over here, we can turn on more lights. We'll turn off the task lights now. Now we have the general lights on and you can see them. Our shop isn't pieced together just to get by with what power we can have. We have here a DeWalt 13-inch planer. Let me go a little wide here for you so you can see this a little bit better. I guess that's as wide as I can go. We have a 13-inch planer sitting here. Over here we have a router table. So we're going to walk you through and show you the tools in the shop first. Here we have a miter saw. Seem to be having a problem with the camera right now. I don't usually use it, the wife usually uses it. Hold on a minute, let me just see if I can get this to work right. There we go. There you can see the miter saw. We have a 10-inch table saw. We have a bandsaw, 14-inch bandsaw here. Here we have a 10-inch saw with dado blades on it. We keep this set up because I do a lot of drawer and cabinet work, and it's just so much easier to have a dado table set up permanently. Here we have a disc sander, belt sander, and an oscillating drum sander. This is our sharpening station here for sharpening drill bits and chisels. Then we have our drill press and our grinder. Back here we have a little, there's usually a, sitting in front of that window, there's usually a laptop table, but I took it inside. I need to do some work on it, so it's not out here right now. But this is just a little hardware storage area that we added on. Basically what we did was we opened the two back doors and we put a floor in it, and we put a ceiling above it, and then built a wall and put a big window in. That was that. The workshop has got a little bit of everything in it. As you can tell, we got tools hanging all over the place. We have lumber racks, scrap lumber. The scrap lumber we use a lot. Back here above the dado table saw, you can see we have glued up pieces of wood here. That's what we do with scrap wood. We take various pieces of scrap wood and glue it back together. It gets used for cutting boards, cheese boards, and coaster sets. And we have cabinets here on the side walls for nails and screws. We have a cabinet over here above the router table for router bits of different types. All the different router bits that we use. Over here we have a cabinet that's got our, did it again, I messed it up again. I gotta keep my hands off that button. Over here we have a cabinet that has tools hanging on the back side of it. And this cabinet swings out on a pipe, mounted on a pipe. On the end it's got a first aid cabinet. That comes out and it's got all my paints, varnishes, glues, and all that kind of stuff in there. This piece of insulation here goes against the wall when it closes. This piece of insulation fits right above this shelf when it closes. And then there's a piece of insulation fastened to the wall that goes up against this side. And I don't have it in here right now because my light bulb burned out, but I usually have a light fixture down there with an incandescent bulb in it that I keep plugged up during winter, and that keeps all my stuff from getting cold and freezing. Up above that we have some bar clamps, 1/2-inch bar clamps over there, 3/4 inch. We have our wood screw clamps there. Then over here we have some F-bar clamps. Those are the ones with the screw on them. We also have some of the squeeze clamps, but I have, with my trouble with my hands and my arms, I have trouble squeezing squeeze clamps to work. And this is my tower of cordless power. Let me get back so you can see it. It's got, down there on the bottom is a cordless recip saw. Then we have a bunch of cordless drills mounted on it, all the way up to the right-angled cordless drill hanging up on top. In between the drills on the post we have all of our bits hanging down through here, all different types of bits hanging there. We also have some short bits hanging down below the handle here. On the other side we have adapters for sockets and then nut drivers up here. We have the black drill is set up for pocket hole saws. It's got a pocket hole drill bit in it. We also have a saber saw down there. And so that's our little tower of power. About the only two battery operated tools that are not on there are my saw, which usually stays on the cabinet and down there on the bottom and underneath the planer. And then the other one that's not in there is my cordless nailer, which stays in the cabinet, in the case, and underneath the drill press. And as you can see, we have all kinds of stuff hanging from the ceilings and hanging everywhere. Nail guns. We have lumber up here in the loft. We have a bunch of lumber up there in the loft. That's a bunch of walnut there. There's some mixed lumber there. And since we're buying calls from the lumber yard, I paid about $35 for a 4-foot stack of wood. We end up with a lot of boards that are thick on one end and thin on the other end. So we slice it, we cut them up before we run them through the planer and run them through the planer, and we come up with different lengths of wood and different widths. Some of these you can see down here on the bottom, we have one real thick one, then we have another thick one, and this thick one's there, and then we go to the 3/4 inch, We have thick ones and 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch up there. We also have some long boards up on top that are 1/2 inch. And most of them are 3/4. There you can see a piece of mahogany wood that's pretty thick. So we've got that. We've got some of our nail guns and stuff hanging here. We've got a big loft in the back. This loft in the back is about 8 feet wide, and you can see it's got a lot of stuff up in it. And then as we scroll around to the front, we see all the stuff hanging on the walls. And up in front we have a short loft, only 4-foot loft up there. But I also put a piece in here where I could put some sheet goods like plywood and stuff like that. And as you can see, we're still running off grid, and off grid we can turn on virtually any tool in the shop we want. The planer draws more power than anything else, but as you can see, we have no problem turning on in the shop. So if you're thinking you've got a shop and you'd like to be off grid, you don't have to spend $20,000 or $30,000 to go off grid. This works. It's a one-man shop, so there's seldom ever 2 tools running at the same time. But the most I might have running at the same time would be a tool and a vacuum, because I do have a little bit of a dust collection system in here. But we've got less than $400 worth of stuff in here to be off grid. We've got the charge controller and the inverter, the solar panels on the roof out here, and I can show you those right here a little bit better. There's 2 30s there and 2 10s there. I bought those used. I've got probably less than $500 in my investment in the shop here. The other thing we did do is the shop is wired with a disconnect box here, as you can see. What this does is if I wanted to, I could shut some switches off inside the house, come out here and flip these 2 switches up, and I can actually backfeed power to the house. And if we've had a week where we've had very little sun, and I've got quite a bit of work I want to do in the shop, I can turn this off, and now as you can see everything is off, and then I can throw these 2 breakers, and I would be back on. When I turn these 2 breakers on, then I go back on grid. So that's how that works. As you can see, not even my chargers are working now. See, I guess I've got the power turned off in the house, so we can't test that right now, but we turn the grid back, go back off grid, and as you can see, the lights came back on. You can see the chargers are working and flashing. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to go off grid. We had 300 watts of solar panels on this garage, or 2 300 watts, and we had 2 300 watts on the house over there beside the roof, but just on the other side of where the windmill's at. And we had a problem with those 2 300s over there, so we took them off, and they're leaning right there against the addition. And we moved these 2 300s over there for the house. And we've got an inverter ordered for the house now, so we're going to be running part of the house off grid. And that'll save us some money on our electric bill. But that's 2 300 watt panels, a 2,000 watt inverter, and for the house I do have some expensive batteries. I've got 2 Rendergy AGM batteries that are 200 amp hours each, so I've got 400 amp hours of batteries over by the house. Let me see if I can see those. Yeah, you can see them right there at the base of the ladder. You can see those 2 gray boxes right there at the base of the ladder, on the back side of the ladder. That's my 2 Rendergy batteries for the house. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to go off grid or partially off grid. Now, if we were wanting to be off grid for a long period of time, I might have a problem with that if we stayed shady for quite a while. So that would be a problem. But then again, being prepared for the inevitable, that setting right down there is a 2,000 watt generator. Our whole house will run on 2,000 watts. We put our house together. Our house is solely 120 volt. There's not a 220 volt appliance in the house, nowhere. There's not a 220 volt appliance out here in the shop. Excuse me. Both the shop and the house are wired for 120 volts and function on 120 volts. The biggest drain thing we have in the house would be the freezer and the refrigerator. The biggest draw thing we have out here, like I said, is of course this planer here, which draws a lot of power. And we can get by very easily. This shop will run, well, right now we've got 12.5 volts showing up on the battery readout. And I could work in this shop easily for 3 or 4 hours today without any problem. And like I said, it's been 3 days since we've had any sun. The advantage of all of this is that it is a one-man shop. That's what makes this work well for me. It's a one-man shop. We've got one tool running at a time. And most days I come out mid-morning and I work until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing out here in this shop that needs to be powered overnight. I will have my incandescent light burning over here in the cabinet for the chemicals overnight, and that will be hooked up to the batteries on a small 120 watt inverter, and it will draw very little, but it will keep my light burning and keep my stuff cool. The other thing a lot of people don't realize is I've got a 3,000 watt inverter sitting here. I've got somewhere sitting here, I don't see it right now. I have a 1,000 watt inverter. I have in my van a 120 watt inverter, so you can use different size inverters depending on what you're using. This 3,000 watt inverter draws a lot of power. I could probably get by with a 2,000 out here, but because of the fact that I use the dust collection system, when we had a 2,000 out here, sometimes the tools would kick it off when it started up because they draw so much power when they're coming on, and if the dust collection system was running, it wouldn't support both of them. So that's why I have a 3,000 out here now, so I don't have that problem. In the house, we won't have nearly as much problem. I have a kilowatt meter, and we have checked the wattages of the refrigerator and the wattages of the freezer and the other stuff that we're using in there, and 2,000 watts should be fine for in the house. So that's basically what we do and how we do things out here. And like I said, it's cheap. This is a cheap way to do solar and make it work. And the other thing is you can be on grid on days like today, which you could see is gloomy and cloudy. And then if you've got a good setup in the house, when I get the 2,000 watt inverter on the house, on a sunny day, I will go out and turn the power off at the pole, because we have a disconnect out on our utility pole. I will kill the power out at the pole, and we will go off grid on sunny days, and that will give us the opportunity to save money on our electric bill. We're not looking to do without the electric company. We're looking to use the electric company when we need them, and when we don't, we won't use them. And on a sunny day, our 300 watt panels will produce, our two 300 watt panels on the house will produce anywhere from 250 to 290 watts at a time on a sunny day. And most of the time, I won't be using 200 to 300 watts. So we'll be able to get by very well. So this is just a little tour of cheap off-grid workshop, show you what can be done if you want to do it. And we'd just like to say, God bless and have a good day. Thank you all for your time. Bye now.